Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
A transfer of rulership is coming, and the kingdom of heaven will be on earth. Righteousness will be spread throughout the whole four corners of the earth. Wickedness will be put down.
Consider the lilies, how they grow. They toil not, they spin not. And yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothe the grass which is today in the field and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O ye of little faith? And seek not ye what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink, neither be ye of doubtful mind. For all these things do the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. But rather seek ye the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell that ye have, and give alms. Provide yourselves bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
According to the Holy Scriptures, Yahweh Shai, the Son of the Most High, is set to bring immortality to the nation of Israel, the elect, via establishing the tabernacle of David. As we talk about the second coming of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, he is coming to take down this current world ruled by Esau, Edom, and establish a righteous kingdom, which is synonymous with the throne of David. That's scriptural, which is a government that's going to run this world in righteousness.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakodash, and noble honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessing salutations. Hopefully, they got there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. All right. And what I want to get into this morning, is a continuation in the book of First Thessalonians. Okay, we made to the fourth chapter. Okay, and I entitled this to the spirit chariot conduct, because it speaks about when you read this chapter, it goes into, walking in Yahweh Shai, making this our life, making this a lifestyle, a conduct that's pleasing, to the Heavenly Father, which, through the scriptures, we have the instructions, on what's pleasing to our Father, what's expected of us in this time, you know, as we, find ourselves, in captivity behind enemy line. All right, we can't keep the law perfectly. Okay, there's a conduct, there's an expectation, there's a mindset, okay, that's pushed throughout the scripture that's pleasing, to our power, and through faith, we walk in this way, because it's all rooted in faith. We came to the understanding, the belief that we're Israelites through faith. We was persuaded, through fear, through the judgment. All right, all these things was within prophecy. Okay, and as we're persuaded and as we believe, the fear of the Lord, the faith, the fear of the Lord through the judgments that's prophesied, and then the faith and the promises, that's prophesied, we begin to walk in a particular way, a way that's pleasing unto our power. Okay, and that's why even if you go here, okay, let's get this real quick in the book of Sirach, okay, 25, okay, and 12. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of his love, and faith is the beginning of cleaving unto him. Okay, so the fear of the Lord is the beginning of his love, because we begin to imitate righteousness, and that fear, because we understand, the judgment is coming, there's something. Remember, the fear of the Lord, is with, the elect from the womb, and his word activates that fear, and that's why when we hear this word, we move with urgency. That's why we can be overzealous and over righteous in the beginning of our walk, because the fear of the Lord is in us and is activated through hearing his word, and we begin to imitate righteousness. Okay. And then as we grow, okay, in understanding, all right, we understand, we start to understand righteousness, man, and it becomes, a way of life. Okay. It says, in faith is the beginning of cleaving unto him, so the hearing of this word, you know, activated that faith and that fear that was in us. Okay. You drew it out, you're going to educate means to draw out, so as we, heard this word, it drew out the faith and the fear that was in us, which created urgency for us to begin to walk in a way that was pleasing to our power, separate, from the idols of this world, okay, which came with a mindset that was contrary to our power. Now, let's go here. Let's go to First Thessalonians. So you get this in the book of First Thessalonians, First Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 1 says, Furthermore, then we beseech you, brethren, and exhort you by the Lord Yahweh Shah Hamashiach, that as ye have received of us how you ought to walk and please the Most High, so you would abound more and more. Okay? So Apostle Paul, he's writing, to the church, okay, about conduct, how we ought to walk, and we always go into that word walk. All right, you should be, if you are a frequent listener, all right, you should understand, when the scriptures speak about, walking in the way, okay, what is it going into? You see? So let's get this in the Greek.
Strong's G 4043. Peripateo.
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 All right, it says to walk, all right, to make one's way, to progress, to make due use of opportunities. All right. Now it says in Hebrew, for to live, to regulate one's life, to conduct oneself. Okay. So when we walk in Yahweh Shah, it's a conduct, that's a mindset. Okay, we have this opportunity, okay, what in this grace period to begin to regulate ourselves and conduct ourselves in a way of righteousness, man, a way that's pleasing to our power, to the best of our ability within the circumstances that we in. You know, you see that, to go, it said to be occupied with, you go down here to live. Okay. So when we begin to live in a way as we learn, all right, and mature in righteousness, we begin to walk in a way to conduct ourselves as pleasing to our power. You see, and that's what this thing is about. Jake has made this thing about everything else except being pleasing, to the Father. Jake want to be pleasing to an audience, to a YouTube audience. Okay, Jake conduct is all over the place. You see, but this thing was always about us waking up to who we are in captivity and becoming pleasing to our power before the destruction. Okay, so we can have mercy, man. Okay, and Jake, has turned this thing into, all right, they want to turn this thing, into a never-ending argument, a soap opera. All right, but nah, that's not why we're here, man. Okay, when you go to the book of Baruch, chapter 4, all right, and on verse 4, it says, "O Israel, happy are we, for things that are pleasing to the Most High are made known unto us." Okay, so things that are pleasing to our power have become known to us now. Okay, and it's through what? Through sound doctrine. Okay, through edification. We're being built up to be pleasing to our power. Okay, as he's getting ready to have mercy on a remnant, or their remnant is being built up to be pleasing unto the power that's finna have mercy on them, man. Okay, and that's all through what? Sound doctrine, all right, and faith. Okay, faith and sound doctrine is gonna go a long way. Okay, in these circumstances that we're in. Okay, so let's go here. Back to First Thessalonians. Okay, as we learn as Israelite men, you few sisters, you should be tapped into what's pleasing, what's expected of us. There's expectation for men, there's an expectation for women, and it's all through the scriptures, man. And it's constantly being taught in this time that we're in. First Thessalonians 4:2 said, "For you know what commandments we gave you by the Lord Yahweh Shah Mashiach. For this is the will of the Most High, even your sanctification, that you should abstain from fornication." Okay, and it's speaking about adultery. Okay, and it says, because that's just like it's a thing in this society. It was a thing in Greco-Rome. Temple prostitutes. You see, which is dealing with women dedicated. You're doing this sexual act, okay, as a ritual, okay, to an idol. Okay, these things was happening back then. Okay, Thessalonica, heavy, all right, pagan culture. That's why the church suffered immediate persecution. As they started to walk in Yahweh. You know, it said that every one of you should know how to possess his vessel in sanctification and honor. And he was pushing discipline. You see, that's another major part of his ministry is discipline. Okay, and that's something that a lot of Israelites don't want to deal with is the discipline of this thing. Okay, and that's why a lot of Israelites flock, to these camps and these groups. Okay, that doesn't require any discipline. You're not required to teach. You're not required to be scholarly. You're not required to do anything. You just sit back, have opinions. Okay, say how something made you feel, but there's really no discipline. And one thing we have to be thankful, that we have, all right, a leadership, that push discipline. Okay, it says not in the lust of concupiscence. All right, which you go into, those sexual immorality, being undisciplined sexually. Okay, matter of fact, let's get this word. Looked it up in a while. Okay, when discipline is one of the foundation. Okay, is a foundation in this thing is discipline.
Strong's G, 1939. Epithumia. Epithumia.
All right, it says a desire, a craving, a longer desire for what is forbidden, lust. Okay, like you got on Pegasus, man. That was concupiscence. He didn't have any discipline. Okay, he desired something that was forbidden. Whether it's adultery, whether it's alphabet. Okay, whether it's whatever it might be, is something that's forbidden. Okay, so Apostle Paul, is setting the standard amongst the church, man. Okay, and he's pushing discipline. You see, because even when you go here, let's get this. All right, let's get this in the book of Wisdom of Solomon. Okay. Let me go to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 6. One of my favorite chapters. But when you jump down to verse, okay, yep. This is our Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 17. Because all right, what did discipline lead to? You see that? You see, faith, fear, discipline, all these things lead to something. Okay. It said, for the very true beginning of her is the desire of discipline, and the care of discipline is love. You see, so the true beginning of her, which is wisdom, is the desire of discipline. It takes discipline to really tap into this wisdom, apply it, and make it a lifestyle. You see, it's repetition, because discipline is really repetition. You know, constant repetition, man, despite the circumstances, and it's that constant repetition. It says, and love is the keeping of her laws, and the giving heed unto her laws is assurance of incorruption, and incorruption maketh us near unto the Most High. And what a better time to be near unto our power as we come into the worst time ever, man. But we come into this thing. There's discipline that's required. It takes discipline to break away from that life we used to live. A constant, repetition of rejecting things, what we used to eat. Okay, you know, getting lineups, and you see, even going to the church, and you know, the things that we once partook in, is we had to constantly reject those things. Okay, killed that desire that was in us. It took discipline. Okay, and then it's you conquer that, then it's on to the next. Now you got to apply discipline to this to kill this. All right, this desire that's in us. Okay, then it's on to the next. Apply discipline to this, kill this desire that's in us, man. On into the chariots till we're perfected, man. Okay, so therefore the desire of wisdom bring it to a kingdom. You see, but what did it start at? This discipline. Now, verse 20, we had a kingdom. You see, so faith, fear, discipline, all these things lead to rulership. All right, because these things make us what pleasing to our power. Okay, the Lord's getting ready to put, the men in rulership that's becoming pleasing to Him within this grace period, man. You see, not no one playing games and want to argue all goddamn time and want to be cute on the internet and popular. The Lord not coming back for them niggas, man. Okay, it said First Thessalonians 4:7 said, for the Most High have not called us to uncleanness, but unto holiness. He therefore that despiseth not man, but the Most High, who have also given us His Holy Spirit. So Apostle Paul, like anyone that's against, the way that you're moving now, the way that your lifestyle, how you change, well, they're not against you. They despise the Most High, because we're beginning to imitate. Okay, Yahweh Bashim Al Shah. We're being conformed to Yahweh Shah. You see, so this world doesn't hate even these niggas that's just crying about marriageable age, and how things were done in the ancient world. They hate the ways of Yahweh Bashim Al Shah. They hate this is why they're so emotional. You see, they really despise, the wisdom of Yahweh Bashim Al Shah. Okay. So the lot of the crying and whining and long ass comments that Jake is leaving, there's really towards the Most High. They really have a petition against Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. Well, we're getting a lesson just specifically, dealing with that, man. Okay, so but it's touching brotherly love. You need not that I write unto you, for you yourselves are taught of the Most High to love one another. And indeed, you do it toward all the brethren which are in Macedonia. But we beseech you, brethren, that you increase more and more, and there's always room for growth. There's always room for growth in this thing, man. As we toil, as we labor, as we fight, there's always room to increase. And the Lord expects that. He wants us to grow. Okay, we never reach a point into this truth where we, content. There's always another level, to step up. Okay, and the Lord constantly requires more of us, man. You see, we're worked in 2021, don't work anymore. The Lord expects more. All right, the bar is constantly being raised. Okay, what worked 4 months ago don't work anymore. The Lord requires more. Okay, That's why we're constantly decreasing. All right, and Yahweh Shai is increasing. Okay, it says, and that you study to be quiet and do your own business and to work with your own hands as we commanded you. Yeah, man. Okay, and this is the opposite of nigga culture. Which loves gossip. Which love, controversy. And that's why a lot of Israelites gather, knowing that a lot of Israelites know that they're Israelites. They gather together for the sake of some controversy. Okay, that's why you don't hear from them niggas unless it's some type of controversy. Okay, these niggas never pop up with an input when it comes to prophecy. Okay, when it comes to the breakdowns. Okay, when it comes to sound doctrine, you never hear peep from them niggas. But when controversy, all right, is on the scene, them niggas is there typing their ass off, man. Okay, we see the Apostle Paul. Let's get this in the NLT. When you read this, 1 Thessalonians 4:11, and even when you get this word quiet, let's get this word. I think it's the word I looked up. And this word in the Greek.
Strong's G 2270. Hesuchadzo. Hesuchadzo.
All right, as a console. All right, it says to lead a quiet life, said of those who are not running hither and thither, but stay at home and mind their own business. Okay, to be silent, i.e., to say nothing, to hold one's peace. So basically, living a quiet life, man. Simple, not all over the place, not on this platform, on that platform, trying to be seen, debate here, and showing up at this event and marching, and big marches and protests and clashing with the Christians, and putting yourself in the midst of chaos. And nah, man, we're here to teach. We have these platforms. Okay, the body, the word is gathering the elect are being edified. So all this extra madness, which does nothing for edification, the clout chasing. No, we're not here for that, man. You see? Yeah, we're told to live quiet, simple lives, man. We ain't here to try to make a splash. Okay, we don't need to be on no flyer, make no AI videos of us like we some, Marvel, heroes. Okay, that's too much, man. Okay, we here to edify, and go back to our simplicity, man. Okay, so going from that, let's oh yeah, let's get this in the NLT. Pretty much goes into that definition as well. When you go to, all right, yep, 1 Thessalonians 4:11. Is it the NLT? The first. So all right, it says this is the NLT. 1 Thessalonians 4:11 said, make it your goal to live a quiet life, minding your own business and working with your hands, just as we instructed you before. Okay, just as we instructed you before, man. Okay, so because Greco, like I say, all these different churches in Asia Minor was in the midst, okay, of these Greco-Roman, okay, cultures, man. They were lively and very paganistic, and there was a lot going on, and you can get caught up into it, man. So we're separated, all right, for this labor, man. Okay, so let's go here. All right. 1 Thessalonians 4:12 said that ye may walk honestly toward them that are without, and that you may have lack of nothing. It said walk honestly towards them that are without, those that are without the faith. So even those that don't believe or know what we believe, we should have a good report. And now, of course, you're gonna have just Once we hear now in America, you just got assholes and demons. Okay. But for the most part, certain places we frequent, and, you know, certain people that we're around, you know, hey, we should have, you know, a good report. Do if we apply this wisdom, if we walk in this wisdom and humility and, you know, integrity, you know, and not doing too much. Cause see, the integrity that this truth is instilling in us, you know, these qualities that we get from, you know, this wisdom, applying this wisdom and this understanding, it's rare in the world. You know, hey, honesty is rare, integrity is rare, reliability is rare. Doing what you say is rare. Okay, not being in people business, that's rare. Okay, not wanting to see, you know, the worst was for someone and loving the gospel, that's rare. I say, even you see these niggas in Israel, like these niggas love gossip, these niggas love some type of controversy and negativity, like you see. But not to be like that, that's rare in this world, man. Okay? It says, in that ye may lack nothing, man. All right, because serving the Lord, you know, it puts us in a position where there's no want. That's why you go here to Psalms, get this in Psalm. You see, let's read it. Psalms 34 and 9 says, "Oh, fear the Lord, ye his saints, for there is no want to them that fear him." And when you read this in the NLT, all right, let's get this in the NLT. This is in Psalms 34, okay, and oh, 1 minute, and 8. All right, it says Psalms 34 and 9 in the NLT. It said, "Fear the Lord, ye his godly people, for those who fear him will have all they need." Okay, and see, as we serve the Lord, because our perspective changed, you know, because this world is so materialistic and, you know, keeps you chasing and competing. Okay, is his world so, you know, superficial and ass backwards. All right, someone making, you know, you know, $20 an hour trying to compete with billionaires. You know, want to imitate billionaires, man. Crazy, backwards as hell. All right, but as our perspective change in the truth, because it's not that we get showered with financial blessings. You know, the Lord provides. All right, but our perspective change, our desires change. You know, when we realize and begin to appreciate, you know, the necessities, the simplicity of life. You know, so let's go back to First Thessalonians. All right, and all this, you know, the way the Apostle Paul built up, you know, this letter. All right, First Thessalonians 4:12, it says that ye may walk honestly toward them that are without, and that ye may have lack of nothing. But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that ye sorrow not, even as others, all right, which have no hope. All right, speaking of those that die in Yahushua. Okay. For if we believe that Yahushua died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Yahushua will the Most High bring with him. You know, and you have brothers that have died in this thing, man. You know, and the scriptures speak about those that were beheaded. Okay. John the Revelator seen a vision of those that were beheaded, but he seen them on thrones. All right. So what we're going to get there, it said, "For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trump of the Most High, and the dead in Hamashiach shall rise first. Then we which are alive, okay, and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds in those chariots to meet the Lord in the air, and so we ever, all right, so we ever be with the Lord. You know, we shall, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. All right, because that's the beginning of the kingdom. Us in those chariots is the beginning of the kingdom, of the eternal righteous kingdom. Okay, so those that die in Yahweh, that's why there's no losing for the elect, even in death. That's why, it should be a no-brainer. Lord will, the Spirit is on us, to boldly accept the death if that's, our lot. Revelation 14:13 says, I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, right, blessed are the dead which died in the Lord from henceforth. You see that? From this time forth. So dying for Yahweh from this time forth, okay, is a blessing. You see? And that's gonna be a thing of honor. Okay, and it's not a loss. See, we can't look at dying in Yahweh as a loss. That's why we die in Yahweh every day. Okay, that old man dies and Yahweh is constantly reborn in us daily. Okay, and then there's gonna be some that have to make that ultimate sacrifice, man. Okay, well, we've been preparing for it. If that's our lot, the Lord has been preparing us for that. He's been building us up to that moment. Okay, to physically die and be born. Okay, be resurrected in Yahweh. And then those that die in Yahweh, when they're resurrected, they're perfected. You see, because all about us being perfected, man. Different paths, okay, to their perfection. Whether we die or whether we remain, we're all being perfected, man. It said, yes, said the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors and their works do follow them. Okay, and there's a reward for their labor. All right, and that's why you go here to in the same book, Revelation 20. All right, in verse 4, and it says, and I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them, and I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahweh Shai. So John the Revelator seeing these men that were beheaded on thrones. Okay, the scripture say, be faithful unto death, and I will give thee what? The crown of life. Okay, an immortal, okay, throne. You see, it says, and for the word of the Most High, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Hamashiach 1,000 years. They lived and reigned with Hamashiach 1,000 years. You see, and they're just that period of their rigorous rulership to enforce righteousness in the earth. 1,000 years is just the beginning. Okay, we're gonna be on God time, so 1,000 years is like a day. We immortals now. You see, 1,000 years is like day one of eternity, man. Okay, Esau is gonna be paid back. Okay, within that 1,000 years, and then exterminated. And these heathens, okay, they're gonna be whipped into shape. 1,000 years gonna be like a righteous boot camp in the earth. Okay, set the tone for forever. You see, so going back to there's plenty of other scriptures to go into that, but point made. 1 Thessalonians 4:17 says, then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore comfort one another with these words, man. And the Lord has made it very doable, man. Like this truth, the hard part, going to the hour of temptation. All right. And what's going to make the hour of temptation when we're going to lose things is already be dead to these things in our mind. Constantly understanding that everything that we got, right? The couch you sitting on now, the TV you looking at, like we got something better. Okay. It's just a temporary, we're being temporary housed. Even our spirits, they're being temporarily housed. Okay. For now. You see in these bodies, man. Everything we in a temporal situation, man, and transitioning to an eternal situation. So yeah, man, we just comfort each other with these words, understanding what we got coming. You know, ain't no loss in Yahweh Shai. You know, even in death, there's no loss. Okay. So Lord will you brothers. All right. And you sisters was edified once again. We'll give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakwadash, and double honors to the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us, younger brothers, and peace and blessing salutations to the hopeful Shalom.